All right, here we are in 12.14. I am Chris, and I am once again joined by my friend Jason.
Hey, good to be here. I was told this was going to be an online graphics card giveaway, but apparently I was tricked. So, patch notes, let's do it.
Uh huh. Okay, let's get right into Aatrox. Oh, yeah. Still working on the Warcraft stuff. It's tough for me, but still hanging in there.
All
All
30 of your
right.
fans really want this, Chrissy.
Uh,
Come on, get.
you exaggerate. 30 fans.
What, you think it's like the same 14 people every time that watch these videos?
It's probably less than that, judged by the analytics section that I can see.
Oh no.
Anyway, let's get to Aatrox, and it's another nerf for Mr. Aatrox. Yeah, I don't know. This champ's either really prevalent in the pro scene or someone really hates him because he's been nerfed like 15 times, like in the last year and a half, basically. And he hasn't really gotten much to compensate for it.
I think
To
it.
be honest, if
Sorry.
they were going to keep going this way, I'd rather of them just like give a big nerf to like his Q damage and give him his revive back if they keep going
hmm
this way.
That good old revive. I remember that. The Aatrox would often build Guardian Angel. You'd have a Zillion on the team. You'd basically have to kill Aatrox 4 times.
Whatever. I mean, it's always something he always had until they got rid of it.
It was always pretty funny. Um, yeah. I think worth noting is that he does get 10 extra health a level. That is a buff in that small little part of it. You're losing a couple percentage healing throughout the game
Yeah, but
in compensation for it.
he's lost that like 5 times.
Yeah. He's definitely been nerfed a few times just because his healing could be insane. It could be insane. And so I think this is really power neutral, for the most part. It might be a tiny, tiny little nerf. I think it's pretty power neutral.
Yeah.
And we're gonna find changes like this a few times through the patch notes. I think the idea is basically that they want to follow up on the durability update, where they make sure that basically if you're hitting him with like real damage skills, he's not gonna be able to out heal 3, 4 people whacking on him.
Uh,
So his baseline reliability gets a little bit better. His ability to like 1v4 fights gets a little bit worse. Basically, if your team is committed to killing him, you will eventually kill him.
all
Um,
right.
I don't think
I better not see those exact words in the league patch notes.
no. The league patch notes they explain it a little bit differently. But that's my take on it. I think the
All
idea
right.
is kind of a follow up on 1210, where they want to make sure that he has a good baseline and doesn't 1v4 as often. That's my take on
I
it.
do agree that he's kind of similar to Soraka, where he's too strong if no one has grievous wounds, and he's kind of not. He's kind of forgettable
That's
if
kind of the
everyone
only
has
buff we've
grievous
seen in the
wounds.
last year or two. Grievous wounds going down.
I was about to. I do think he's not very good in the late game. He's too slow. His kid is way too slow in the late game.
Mhm.
He does fall way off a cliff, I think. Okay, let's move down to Alistair. I'm always happy to see buffs for the tank supports. I feel like they're like the most neglected group of champs in the game. And this just lets him do exactly what he wants to do a little bit more often, and that's just, push people around. So, what more could you want?
Right. The pulverized headbutt combo is obviously what you're always going to be using on Alistar. And headbutt has the exact same cooldown that pulverize has just been changed to 14 through 10. So I think that's pretty cool. As long as you're skilling them equally, which you might not always do. There might be a case to be made for doing that now, so that there's kind of no gate in the frequency that you can use it.
I like this for pulverize, but I'd actually be happy if they took like 2 seconds off of headbutt because I like how that's more of like the displacement tool and this is like the
Yeah,
stun. So I would like more access to headbutt, even if they clamp down on that thing's damage for like the 20th time in like 12 years. I'd
I
be
agree with
fine with
you.
that.
I agree with you. I think a lot of the really great Alistars, right? They're going to use the headbutt for other reasons than the headbutt pulverize combo.
Uh huh.
Uh, Use it for disengage, use it to insect someone. I mean, whatever. It's cool to have that up a lot.
It
Either way,
really
this is not the Alistar get. I feel like really ever since they This was years ago. Ever since they took a lot of the damage reduction off of level 2 and 3 of his ult, he really hasn't ever been a great champ since.
No, I have to disagree with that. I think him and Blitzcrank are the best low econ champs in the game just because their kit always remains consistent to its effect, regardless of how poverty stricken or rich as fuck you are. I think he's always been good. It might seem that way because he's so old and it's hard for him to look as good to like even Leona,
Right.
you know, based on what he
Yeah,
does.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying, right? Like, there's not a lot of cases I'd rather have him than a Leona that can stun you every 4 seconds.
I don't know. They're both.
And that's
Okay.
why I like seeing these buffs.
All right. Let's talk about that mana cost. No, I'm just kidding. All right, let's move
Five less
on.
mana.
Let's move on to Gangplank, who probably received the biggest change in this patch.
Mm-hmm.
And I really haven't been happy with Gangplank myself since this is his second rework. I was not happy with his second rework. I liked how he was in the very beginning and his first reworked form. I just don't like the barrel mechanic. I kind of have a feeling in the back of my head that eventually they're gonna give him another rework where he'll lose the barrel mechanic. It's just so inconsistent. Yeah, it makes for like great like YouTube clips when people get blown up by like barrels and shit, but I feel like it's just kind of makes him too inaccessible, and it is like so stupidly easy to play around in the laning phase. It's like a dead weight skill in the laning phase, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I've certainly been harassed by it at times. It really depends on if you're one of those champs that can easily run up and hit the barrel or not. There are times you can definitely use it to bully, but those are champs you would already probably be bullying, right? It's just that he's going to be able to bully even harder.
I feel like a cerebral person can play around his barrels with any champion in the game, to be honest. It's all about just timing. So regardless of how fast your like projectile is, if you're a ranged champion or if you're melee, it's just about timing, you know? It's not
Is the
so
idea
much
kind of
about
walk up to the barrel while it's still ticking down?
yeah, you know when the tick happens. The tick gets
Yeah.
faster at like 6:11 and or something, so he can pull it off easier. But man, those first several levels, the tick is so slow. It's so easy to play around. It just feels bad. What would have made me actually happier is if they made his Q. This would be actually make me. His whole thing is he's supposed to kind of be like Pantheon, where he's supposed to be able to push you out of the lane with like his Q. But man, his Q has like never been good enough to do that. At least Pantheon could like the old Pantheon could do that, and the new one's not half bad at that. But his Q has like never been good enough to like push you out of the laning phase. I just don't think it. It just doesn't do enough. What I would have liked to see, and I don't see them doing this, but if his Q had like a secondary effect where if you held it down for like 1 second, it would apply his passive to his Q. That would be sweet.
So you would have to actually like charge it up in front of your opponent's face for a second?
Just for like 1 second, it would still be like a lock on.
I guess that's fine. I don't know. I consider him to be a somewhat effective champion. You really do need a good player to play Gangplank.
Oh yeah,
A
man.
bad player tries playing GP,
Oh
and he's
yeah.
gonna get crushed.
This is one of the champion. I think he's one of the hardest champions in the game to play. You have to pour hundreds, if not thousands, of hours into this champion to get like the barrel physicality down to like an art.
I'm just glad they got rid of the grasp the undying interaction with his Q.
I actually think that was a big mistake, to be honest.
Nah.
Like him and Poppy both lost that. I don't. I think that was really dumb of them to do. It like
I wouldn't mind like Poppy having it, but Gangplank having it basically every few seconds with a decent range as a crit chance carry seemed ridiculous to me.
well, getting making the interaction worse. All it did was like limit his build options, which I'm never really for.
It basically removed Tank Plank, which I'm perfectly fine with personally.
Well, now everyone has to basically play him with tons of crit. Now I liked how
Certainly
he
with this, certainly with this change. So let's just reset it for anybody who's listening. Among several different changes here, the biggest one, Trial by Fire, now deals an additional, based on your critical strike chance, 0 to 200 true damage whenever you activate that passive. And they did nerf a few things along the way. I think the powder keg is doing about the same amount of damage, but deals a little bit less slow. Powder keg also has a slow amount, scaling based on your crit chance. So basically, if you're not building this guy with crit anymore, you're leaving a lot of damage and slow on the table.
This change to this critical strike multiplier is probably actually the most significant of all of these changes.
Which one are you talking about?
The thing where his barrels don't crit for as much.
Oh, yes. The I see. The critical strike damage multiplier is also reduced on the barrels. Yes.
Yeah, you might as well just get Warmog instead of Infinity Edge by now.
So in that case, this really kind of does seem like kind of a straight nerf.
That's a giant nerf.
Yeah, I mean the trial by fire is pretty nice, and
It's nice,
for
but it doesn't scale very well.
after level 4 or 5, he's also going to have more base health, but less base armor. Yeah, it did a lot of like little nerfs and a lot of little buffs to compensate. I have to agree with you. Probably with the critical strike damage multiplier down on powder keg, this is probably a nerf overall. Would you agree?
Definitely.
Yeah.
His passive doesn't scale well, even into like the mid game. So the fact that they made this do more with crit, it's not really a big deal, seeing as how he always has to do a melee attack to trigger this. This isn't a good buff for him, honestly.
Do you think this is going to change his core build at all?
No, I think people are going to be forced to just build him with like mostly just damage items exclusively still.
It was probably their intent in the first place. All right.
Okay. Why don't we just skip Gnar? It's not really of consequence since he gets like infinitely superior stats when he's in Mega Gnar.
Well, I do think Mini Gnar, right? That guy can put out pretty surprising amounts of damage.
All right, let's not skip it.
With his ability to run you down. So I think particularly in the landing phase, this will make him a little bit weaker. And I haven't seen Gnar to be particularly powerful in my games. Not that I even see him that often. But I think he's been more popular in high level and pro play.
Yeah.
That's all I had to say about it.
I think he's more consistent than Gangplank, if I had to say. To be honest.
Like, there's a lot of times where I actually think Mini Gnar is better to have than Mega Gnar.
You're right. It depends on how you build it, but Mini Gnar is more like tank busting AD carry if he builds appropriately. Is the Mega Gnar is all about like team fighting. He can be quite a little shit if you know how to build him.
He absolutely can. And if you're just kiting appropriately, like you can poke someone down way more than you'd expect. And if you have a long lane, just run him down and kill him. So there's 40 health off and less health reduction. Less health regeneration will definitely make him a little bit easier to punish in lane.
That is true.
All right. I'm sure you're going to be a fan of these changes, Chrissy.
I'm not really going to compliment them too much because all they did was pull back on the initial nerf and realize that they were fucking morons. So, hooray for putting it back to the way it was. You're so smart.
You must have missed the heal and shield power reduction.
No, I didn't miss it, but she didn't have that for most of her lifetime, so, it's still something she didn't have, so. I don't like how her shield base amount is still so low, so whatever. It'd be nice if it was just 200 and they could just leave it at that.
You gave back a little bit of base shield in Eye of the Storm, but if you slow or otherwise CC someone, you get less bonus heal and shield power for the next few seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Monsoon up a little bit. That is, I think, a direct revert of what they did in 1210.
It's exactly that.
Overall, this is a very, very slight buff. I kind of thought there were most of the numbers, and unless you're playing her with a lot of AP and using E a lot more often than R, in which case it could actually be power neutral or a slight nerf. Yeah, we're talking kind of a very slight buff here. Not really enough to change how much she's going to be played or how good she is.
No, She's all about the peel, and that's not going to change.
That's true. They didn't touch her ability to actually displace you.
All right, let's move on to Jarvan, who got
Mm-hmm.
some love. I have to say, this is a pretty sizable ratio for like a basic ability. The good ones, like stuff that like Riven and Lee Sin have, are around like 100 bonus AD. This is pretty fucking generous. This could make top cheese Jarvan a real thing again, because this is pretty potent.
Oh, you think this brings him back to top lane?
He can be pretty cheesy top, and
That's interesting.
this is a pretty gigantic buff to an ability that was actually already pretty strong.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this will. I don't know that I see top Jarvan coming back, but I
You
think
might
we'll
even
definitely.
see this mid. It's this Q combo is so cheesy with like the runes
You're
these
right.
days.
I definitely think we'll see him in the jungler more after this.
Yeah.
Nice AD ratio boost on Dragon Strike, and a couple seconds less when you get to the high level at Demacian standard. It's really nice. It's actually one of the bigger buffs of this patch since most of the other champs that got buffed had something else nerfed to an almost equal amount. This is one of the nice like straight buffs on this patch.
I'll be happy when they make his Demacian standard give him armor again like it used to.
You wouldn't want it to go back to like armor and resists, even if it's in a lesser amount?
I don't think it ever gave MR. It gave armor.
No, it didn't. It didn't. But don't you think it's weird that it only gave one and not the other?
Not particularly. He was
Not a
advertised
lot of
as like a
stuff like that.
jungler when he came out, and then at one point, I guess they thought he was too good at jungling, so they just got rid of it altogether. But clearly, the
Right.
pace of the game has kind of pushed him into a middle of the pack area, or he wouldn't be getting a few buffs over the last couple months. So
Right. Yeah, he's somebody who you definitely want to play to spike someone down or help your team spike them down.
he's my go-to jungler. So that's cool with me.
It's always pretty nice to have on your team.
Yeah, I think most people think he's pretty bad in the late game. He's not great, but he's definitely not bad.
Yeah, he really becomes more utility in the late game. You don't want to be playing him for his damage.
All right, let's move on to Kane. And this poor bastard. What a shadow of his former self he is. Honestly, this is just like, I'm sure the Shadow Assassin will be just fine, but this is just a nail in the coffin for Ross. I can't believe this used to be like, was it 44 or 54% he used to heal off of? I mean,
Yeah,
he's
it
just,
was
if
some
Ross,
really weird number.
it was
I think
it was a
in the
lot.
40s. Yeah.
If Ross doesn't have obnoxious healing, he is not good. He is just like all about those super long fights and stuff. And this is just embarrassing. And Ross is like the cool one. You know?
Rust is the cool one. I usually see him go Shadow Assassin these days, and I think that one is still
That
fine.
doesn't surprise me. Yeah, that was always
Yeah.
redonkulously good.
And I agree with you in that Rust is not real good right now, right? But as far as this change in particular, I think it's actually power neutral.
What?
He's gonna have like 150 to 170 extra health at the end of the game. And he's also gonna do or get 5% less healing from the Darkened Scythe.
What does his health pool have to do with how much sustain he's got?
Because it's only his health pool that's increasing. It's not like they gave everybody 10 bonus health in this patch.
But he heals based on the damage he deals.
Right.
What
I'm
does
not
that
saying
have
that
to do with his health pool?
Right, I'm not saying the heal has gone up. I'm saying his total survivability will be about the same. He'll be able to last about as long in a 100 to 0 all-in combat.
I don't know if you can equate like 180 more hit points
He's
to
got to do
5% less.
3,400. He's got to do about 3,400 damage in a team fight to actually outpace the amount of extra health that he's getting here. It's not completely equatable. It's not like it's just two lines going up together, but that's kind of the quickest, dirtiest way to do the calculation.
I mean, it's totally dependent on the build he goes for.
For sure.
I mean, Conqueror, no Conqueror, shit like that.
Yep. But you see this as a nerf overall? Because I see it as power neutral.
It's definitely a nerf. I don't think you can equate an extra 180 hit points at 18 over a giant drop like this. And this is a lot. I mean, when they make changes, to like Ravenous Hunter or the Omnivamp items, they drop like 1%, 2%, 2%. This is this is a lot.
They don't usually give it 180 bonus health though.
I mean, that's nice, but it's it's not that much. It is a lot.
I mean, this might be a Rorschach. This might just be, the way that you see the game determines what you think of this change. For me, this is power neutral.
All right.
Yeah. Kledd's pretty unimportant here.
Guess we'll move on to LeBlanc. And this is also one of those abilities that there was a point in time where maxing her W was the end-all be-all way of playing LeBlanc, and that persisted for a very long time, and that ability got nerfed a bunch. And I'm pretty sure this is still far away from where it was before people started maxing Distortion over Sigil of Malice. So this is definitely good because this is her wave clear tool also. People are never going to stop maxing Distortion, so I think they've kind of just accepted that and gave her some power back. It doesn't make any sense to max anything other than Distortion anymore. It's all about clearing the waves and roaming and shit, and you have to max Distortion to do that or you have no presence.
Yeah, there was a little while they wanted you to, I think, max Malice, right? But
that was back in the old days, yeah.
It was never really a thing. And I think that the 60 extra base mana at level 1 in particular is probably the biggest part of this buff. The fact that LeBlanc is going to be able to have a little bit of extra kill pressure on you, right? When she would have otherwise been completely dry of mana and presenting no kill threat as your level 4, 5, trying to get to 6, right? Before you do your first back. The fact that she can present a little bit more kill threat at that stage is probably the best part of this buff. And I think this will help her a little bit. This will make her laning a little bit stronger. That's really all I got to say about it.
Alright, let's skip beyond these cosmetic changes here. Nothing really happened with Nyla. I was surprised that they didn't dick with her again. Apparently, lots of funny business, but we're not here for funny business. Let's move on to Pantheon. And I'm really happy with this change. I actually don't really have a problem with this guy trying to jungle at all. He's kind of just on the brink of, Bruiser-esque. He's definitely more of a bruiser now than before his rework, where he was just like a glass cannon kind of loser. So I'm pretty happy with this. Plus, this is really going to help with those 4 Aegis stack where if you have 4 of the Aegis stack and you hold down the Q, his Q does way more. So this is all for those Baron snipes.
Yeah, so just to be like crystal clear, they are keeping the damage against minions at 70%, but changing the damage against monsters to 105, obviously, to make it easier for him to jungle. I agree with you. I think he's actually a pretty fair and pretty balanced jungler. One that I don't mind seeing in the game when he's on my team or the other team.
Yeah, they did an amazing job with his rework. I'm very impressed. I haven't really talked about that because he's kind of a champion that's not on a lot of people's radars. He's never been very popular. Because
he used to, before his rework, and that was what, season 6 or 7, I think.
It wasn't that long ago, but it's like it was like 2.5 years ago or something.
Oh, it feels so much longer.
No, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, before his rework, he was like the greatest champion in the game until level 6, and then fell off harder than any champion in the game. I think they did a good job with his rework as well.
One of the best I think they ever did. They really kept everything and just made everything cooler. I mean, what more could you want?
Only thing I don't like about this change is, like, why not just drop the reduced damage against monsters, make it 100%, make it simpler, instead of having to put on the tooltip, deals 105% against monsters? Like, come on.
Well, clearly some brainiac decided that was, like, the threshold to, like, one-hitting the baby Krugs or the little raptors or something.
Come on, every champion in the game can one-hit the baby Krugs.
No.
Alright,
let's move on to... I really don't care about Renata, so let's talk about Seraphine instead.
Can you believe that they nerfed her again, though? I just want to, like, real quickly talk about Glask. Like this is
Yeah,
a champion that I look at her and I'm like, can she do things? No, no, didn't think so.
I'm really
Um,
happy with her getting nerfed because it'll just bring her closer to getting reworked.
that's probably fair. I'm sure she's good in pro play. Like there's some real utility in that kit,
Oh
but
yeah,
man,
her ultimate is just devastating. It's just everything else so lackluster.
yeah, everything else it just seems like she can never really do anything with it.
Probably
She has to go on.
one of the most, along with Seraphine actually, one of the most powerful ultimates they came out with in a long time, in my opinion. Late game, it's absolutely devastating.
What do you say? It's more devastating than Bel'Veth's?
Uh, Before on release, no, I would say Belveth's was more because if she triggered even one of the void corals, the team
Yeah,
fight would just flip so fast.
I
Just
agree.
one, yeah. So
Yeah,
no, I would
but
say
they have more than one.
hers was crazy, yeah.
Yeah. Crazy to see a champion. Crazy to me, at least. Where I am in silver, gold, and platinum, depending on the friends I'm playing with. Crazy to me to see Renata taking more and more nerfs. I think I understand it's probably because of professional and high level play, but from where I am, she just seems so useless. All right.
Yeah, she sucks.
Yeah.
Um, they really wanted to lock down on her. They should make her ultimate travel faster too. Really emphasize the ultimate. Give her. That's the only thing she's really good at, to be honest.
Yeah, the ultimate, and to some extent the team fight saves. Like if you have a lot of people dying in a team fight, the W is likely to get the revive.
I would
It's just
agree
not
with that, but the changes they've made to that ability since she was released have made it so incredibly difficult and niche to execute that it's kind of
yeah, that's
garbage now
fair.
too.
That's fair. It's inching closer to garbage.
Don't even get me started on her E. What a joke.
I regret getting you started on anything. Let's move on.
Okay, let's go to Seraphine. This is kind of disappointing. I really actually like Seraphine because kind of she's everything that Sona should be if Sona was a lot stronger. Because Seraphine is undoubtedly Sona on crack. She's just better. She does everything Sona does, but better, basically. And yeah, this ability has been nerfed a million times. It's still super potent though because it's like based on max health or missing health or whatever. But this was truly bananas late game, so it's kind of bummer that they nerfed this a little bit.
Have you played Sona at all since the rework? Since the durability update?
No, but I played the champion for a very long time.
I think you and a lot of other people are sleeping on her. I think since the durability update, she's actually really, really good. Um, as far as Seraphine, though, I agree with you. This is kind of sad to me, particularly to see the AP ratios reduced. And these are some pretty significant AP ratios. Sure, she can still do a lot of damage with her Q and E, but they're knocking down the shield AP ratio from 35 to 25 on the W, and that's
Yeah,
significant.
pretty
That's
sure
significant.
both of these figures have already been nerfed once or twice before as well.
They have. They have. I think the heal used to be 1%. I'm not totally sure, but I think it was 1% per 100
I think it
AP.
was like 1.2 actually, or something like that.
You might be right. I was actually thinking 1.22. 1.2 as well. And then I was like, no, that seems weird. But I think you're right. I think it was 1.2 as well. Sad to see that reduced so much because the heal, even at 1.2, was pretty insignificant. And
Late game, it's
if
gigantic.
anything, I like Seraphim being able to build AP and get reduced for this. Now, this I did actually check the League of Legends Riot official patch notes for, and they say that it's that Seraphine AP carry in the bot lane was getting too strong, and that's why they wanted to go after the
Oh,
AP.
well, that's what I do.
Still sad to see for me.
I don't know why you would play her any other way. Her Q is bananas strong.
I mean, AP as a support works just fine. AP mid works just fine. I don't know why you need to necessarily play her as an AP carry bot.
So that's what makes her abilities potent.
Yeah, I guess, but they're also potent on support.
All right.
Anyway, sad to see. We definitely agree on that.
All right, let's skip through this thing that apparently people have been cheating with Scion for 20 years. Let's move
Shame
on
on you
to.
for doing that. Shame on you.
Now, this changed to Sivir. I believe when she got this rework on the last patch, the casting time on her Q actually got down to 0, which probably kind of fucks with a lot of people's minds. So they probably decided that it shouldn't be 0, which I kind of agree with.
Oh wait, you think that was a bug? Because
It wasn't a bug. It was, you have to be careful. A lot of times when they say bug fix, it's actually just something that existed in the game that they eventually caught on to. So when they say, and that's true for this case, when they say bug fix, this isn't a bug. They purposely designed it to have a cast time of 0 seconds, and then they were like, whoa, that's kind of stupid. Animations are a thing. So this wasn't a bug fix, and this happens a lot. They'll say bug fix, but it was a design decision.
what they're describing here, and tell me if I'm wrong, is the patch notes are saying that the cast time is being reduced on this patch. That last patch, it actually had a longer than intended cast time at high levels.
Well, if that's true, I know when we were reading the thing last time that they gave this thing a cast time of 0 seconds.
Interesting. So
I
the
don't
patch
know.
notes
Suffice
are
to say,
saying differently, but yeah, I don't know for sure.
And then we got some changes to Ricochet here. I guess she's not as good at clearing waves as she was before a rework. Or too good.
Right. They decided that she was too good at wave clear in particular. After her
Well,
rework.
it's kind of always been her thing, so whatever.
Yeah, so she's still going to be able to last hit fairly effectively, especially in the earlier stages of the game, but this is a pretty significant nerf to her wave clear overall. She's going to be less of a pusher and clear because they're taking away almost a quarter of her damage from Ricochet against minions. So be aware from that if you're a Silverman.
Back when I played a lot of ranked, I played a lot of Sivir.
Yeah, I remember you used to play a bunch of her.
She doesn't
Do
really.
you play her? Do you play her at all now?
I haven't been playing a lot of ranked recently. I kind of play all the goof shit with my friends. Yeah. Yeah.
One just tiny little detail for anyone who's very mathematically oriented and is watching this. If you look at the cast time rounding up to full game ticks, I did a little math on this, and this is basically implying that there are only like 15 ticks of the game every second, rather than the 60 that you might expect. So what that kind of means here is that whenever you cast a skill, there is going to be a variability in the cast time based on whether you click it. Based on whether you click the ability at the beginning or the end of the game tick, which is impossible for you to control. There's going to be a variability of about 1/15th of a second, or about 0.06 seconds. So whenever you're casting a skill, or you see an enemy casting a skill, and you want just that little bit of extra knowledge about how quickly you can get there, just be aware that that little bit of variability is going to be inherent in the skill.
All right, let's move on to Teemo.
All right.
Okay. I'm always pretty neutral about Teemo changes. I'm surprised they'd even dare to change this champion. I'm perfectly happy with Teemo buffs, to be honest. I think he's honestly not a very good champ. He's too much of a cheese lord, to be honest.
For many, many years, I always thought of him as one of the 10 worst champions in the game, if not one of the worst champions in the game. He was terrible.
He's definitely not in that territory, but he's
been given so many buffs over time, over like the last like 3 or 4 seasons, that I agree he's not in that territory anymore.
He's still actually good against like the niche auto attack dependent champions that he's always been good at, so he's definitely not in like Twisted Fate, Aurelion Sol, Ivern territory. So
yeah, but I feel like he used to be. I felt like he used to be even worse than like a TF.
No, I don't really think so, because the more far back you go, he was still potent against like the ghetto dedicated on hitters of his era, like Trendemir and Jax and stuff like that. So I think he proportionally got better as like the game kind of
Those are the
advanced.
those are the only champs that he was good against, and he was still maybe useful as a counter pick, but come late game, they would usually kick his ass anyway.
No, there's a lot of
Now,
things he's good at. He can
now if you
play.
play him properly and you counter pick well, like Teemo is actually like a fairly useful champion. If
No,
you're just blind picking him as the first pick, you're an idiot.
he's good against like Fiora, Aurelia, Rengar, people that have
Garen,
an enhanced auto attack component. He
yeah,
can force them to miss stuff like that.
absolutely. Or anyone who's very auto reliant in general, something like a Vayne, for example.
Anyway,
Yeah, anyway, so the Noxious Strat can be used a little bit farther at level 6 and at level 11 than it used to be. That's something to look out for. Yeah, costs a little bit less mana, does a little bit more damage.
you know, my friend Matt plays this guy, likes to play him in ARAM, and just make these giant lines of shrooms where they just keep bouncing off each other until they like run into somebody. And we always joke about what they could do to make Teemo like a little bit more modern. And we were always saying that if he just like chuck the shroom into someone, it should just immediately do like 25% of like the total dot damage or something like that. Or if it like landed on top of another shroom, it should like detonate a previous shroom and do like a bigger AoE or something like that.
We're gonna turn Teemo into Gangplank, huh?
Well, if they give him this big throw range, then why is there no interaction with throwing stuff other than just placing it right in your feet like he used to do a long time ago?
I think kind of
So-
like the interaction they're going for is just being able to bounce it places. That's about it.
Yeah, I feel like me and Matt think they could do more with the throw capabilities.
Yeah,
Another
that's not a bad idea.
Another thing we were thinking of is kind of like Kog'Maw. If you kill him, all of those shrooms in his backpack just detonate and stack.
He'd be the trolliest fucking champ in the game.
Kind of like Shaco's clone, where he leaves the mini trio of Jack in the Box things.
Freaking Shaco.
Like they would still have to arm, but yeah, he leaves behind like a shroom comparative to the number of shrooms he had in his backpack when he died.
Oh my god. You know what? Maybe we can do something like that for Nidalee and actually make her halfway relevant.
Yeah, she just poops out like 10 of the bushwhack traps. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to, I guess, Varus.
He gets 3 AD.
All right, let's move on to Wukong. Varus is actually one of my favorites, but his W is so good. He doesn't even. They've buffed and nerfed his base AD so many times to compensate for his W's on hit magic damage. So this is very good because his W is basically Nashor's Tooth. Okay, let's move on to Wukong. And first thing I thought about when I said this or saw this is kind of similar to Gangplank. This is just going to push people into even more of like assassin Wukong builds than they already are. Even though this new passive he got really complements more of like a bruiser style with how much armor and regen he gets. So this is a real downer for me, and I don't really know where this was coming from.
So just to be clear, you're talking about a passive they gave him recently, or you're talking about this change?
He got this new passive not terribly long ago.
Right. The recent passive. Can you reset that? Because I don't remember exactly what that is.
But what is?
What his new passive is.
Every time he or his clone attacks a champion, he gets a stack of stone skin, and each one gives him more regen and more armor.
Oh, okay.
And it stacks like 20 times.
So they found that that was like a little bit too good, and they're taking away some of the health regeneration from Stone Skin.
Yeah, I really don't like this. Because it's not even that potent on him if he's going Glass Cannon, which most of them do anyway. So now that it's less potent, it's still like even more less potent because he has way less health.
Yeah, this is a champion that... go on.
So it's kind of a self-defeating nerf or whatever, you know? Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, this is a champion that I think I've played once in my life, and I don't have a lot of experience landing against either.
When I was a young man, I used to jungle him a lot.
I did look up some of the official Riot comments on this one, and they're saying this is meant to be power neutral for like the first half of the game, and then like as it scales late into the game, it's meant to be a slight nerf.
No more of that power neutral saying. I'm tired of it. That's an excuse for Riot buffoonery. No more power neutral.
Hey, I'm not saying that it's good to shuffle deck chairs on the Titanic.
You gotta get off the fence and say, is it a nerf or is it a buff?
You're calling me Fancy Fencerton, huh? It's a slight nerf. There you go.
All right, that's right.
All right.
Okay, let's move on to Yumi, who just can't catch a fucking break with her, like,
Kill that cat!
yeah.
I'm happy every time we see Zoomies nerfed.
I mean, this is just, like, kind of getting a bit stupid. Now that it long ago it lost its ability to be more potent with less health, I feel like you're just beating a dead cat, so to speak. Yeah, what's that? Away, like, what's that stuff you give cats to make them more playful? They're basically high.
Catnip?
Yeah, they need to give her. She needs a little bit more of her catnip back.
Is that what you think is going to appear in the patch notes? I can give you odds on that if you want.
I know how strong she used to be, and I know how much is like an overreach, and this is getting into just silly territory with these nerfs.
I don't know. I'm always happy to see. I mean, I'd be happy if they nerf it to 0%, to be honest.
So you think it should only give attack speed and movement speed?
I would be fine with that, or and maybe a flat heal.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a Yumi fan, sorry, you're now doing like half of the AP ratio on Zoomies that you used to do, and too bad. I would really like to see them, again, to encourage more skillful play. And they have been doing this a lot with the direction of the last year or so. Just really putting a lot more power into her bop and block passive and continually taking power out of the Zoomies. Because that actually requires a little bit of skillful play rather than hit E while you're on an ally.
Alright, let's go into Zeri. And this looks like a lot of nonsense, and the reason it looks that way is because it is. Basically, they just screwed with some of her goofy non-Q numbers, and her Q is the thing of the most relevance, so this is basically irrelevant.
Lightning Crash, I think, is somewhat relevant here.
Not with those numbers.
Well,
are you happy about 5 more damage when you're level 16? I don't think so.
Well, it's 5 less, but it's actually okay. Hang on. It's 5 less on each one of the little projectiles that comes out from the auto, as well as you have increased attack speed during the Lightning Crash buff. So if you look at it like for real, it's kind of for every auto attack that you would have been doing without the buff, you're actually doing about 20 less damage with the buff than you would have before this patch. So, that's something. It's about 20 per auto, or it's 15 per auto at a higher auto rate, is what it really is.
I'm not really sure this activates multiple times per Q.
That's the way I understand it. I'm not a Zeri player. Well, the Lightning Crash isn't the Q.
Yeah, I know, but it's an on-hit effect, essentially.
Oh, all right. So I'm looking at this. It's, just looking at it real quick. Overcharge. Yes. So Burst Fire is empowered to have a 20% shorter cast time and instead fire 3 rounds that travel with increased speed and deal bonus magic damage. So I believe that these numbers are tripled and you're queuing, or autoing as I like to call it for Zeri, faster than usual. So I think that's something. But
it made it worse.
The basic attack stuff, unless you're a Zeri man, you can almost kind of ignore that. It's not doing a lot.
Okay.
All right.
Let's move on to the items, which I was pretty upset about because I get a lot of these on Shen. So seeing them just nerf all of the healed and shield power items, I was very upset about. Very, very upset because enchanters are my favorite supports too. Yeah.
I see it. If you're going to take heal and shield power this low in the game, just get rid of it as a stat. and bring higher AP ratios back to the enchanters on their heals and shields.
They would never do that.
Why not?
Because then you'll start seeing mages that have any kind of utility ability start picking them up.
Start picking up AP.
They'll start picking up support items because they tend to be $1,000 less than mage items. I've seen it a million times for years. Mid laners picking up like support items because they're always cheaper, and you can build a chain of them for like half the money basically.
Well, with inflation these days, I'm just looking forward to the patch where everything will cost 9,000 gold.
Yeah. Bummer.
It's rough out there.
It's very rough.
So yeah, Art Sensor, Forbidden Idol. Oh, that one actually hurts a lot. 10 to 8 on Forbidden Idol. Jeez.
This redemption change really hits me hard. I get this on Shen like every game because it's hilarious to ult in and then use redemption.
At the same time that you're ulting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Redemption and Mikhail's both down from 20 to 16. Moonstone down from 25 to 20 at the maximum stacks.
Well, that's okay. They nerfed that 27 times anyway.
Yeah, and pretty much, like, if you're, like, a champion that needs to use Moonstone, you pretty much need to use Moonstone. There's not really a good alternative for you. I mean, maybe the Shurelius?
That thing sucks.
That's so reliant on your team to actually not be a bunch of dumbasses anyway.
No one buys
Staff
that.
of Flowing Water, 10 to 8. Why is that? Because if nobody is making use of the moment to run at someone.
No, I said nobody buys that.
Oh, gotcha. I see it sometimes.
People are more likely to buy Ludens than they are to buy that.
I don't know. I see a bunch of supports buying that.
Alright, suffice to say, they screwed over all of the healing stuff in the way of items this time around. Let's move on to this Sunfire Aegis change.
Okay.
I'm pretty confident this will actually yield some way more serious damage over time damage in the later portions of the game to compensate for its losing half its base damage. This is going to make it pretty bananas, I think, on its core users.
Now, worth noting is that the burn was only increased on the bonus health. So if you're going against someone with very little bonus health, something like an ADC, you're not going to be burning them a lot more. But I agree with you. For the core users, particularly the ones that are going to be 1v1ing in lane a lot, this is probably very good.
I think you have a misconception of this. That's the ratio of the user's health ratio that goes into the burn damage, not how much it does to its target.
Oh, sorry, you're absolutely right. Yes. It's not based on the target's health like Sunderers. It's based on the users.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is you're right. Just absolutely a straight buff for anybody using Sunfire Aegis. And that's a pretty expensive item. I mean, I particularly do like it for a lot of top laners. And I like using it, and I already thought it was decent. But this will be nice.
It's very good with only like one damage item, like Titanic, which isn't totally a damage item, but getting just these two items. The thing is, when Sunfire damages someone, it also stacks like 5 or 6 times to do way more burn damage than it does by default, which is already pretty good. And when it maxes out, you start doing basically wit's end damage to people as a dot. And that's like really strong. That's really strong for an item that isn't a damage item. So they've really pushed this into like the PvP tank item, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like the tank's damage item. I agree with you completely. It can really have significance during a fight. Do you always like it as the trade-off versus Frostfire, or there's still a lot of champs you buy Frostfire on?
No, I'm very torn. There's a lot of champs I get all three, even the chem tank thing, because they took. I was very upset, but they moved the CDR synergy from Sunfire Cape to Chem Tank, so you have to get that if you want all of the extra CDR, like on Shen or something. But no, I still get the Frostfire Gauntlet a ton just because it gives the most health and stuff like that, and the slow, the slow
it's
effect.
Kind of a tank item, if you will.
Yeah, that's the big boy. Yeah.
All right. Do you want to talk about the potion and biscuit changes at all?
We can ignore the biscuits since they're meaningless. Okay, let's
Okay.
move on to these masteries.
Can I talk the potions real quick though?
The potions.
Yeah. So they nerfed the healing of all of the potions in the game by 20%. And
Oh,
what that's gonna
yeah.
yeah, what that's gonna do is it's actually gonna be, I think, pretty significant buff for anybody who wants to poke you out in lane. Doesn't mean you're gonna be killing people a lot more often, but if your plan as a champion is to poke someone out in lane and kind of force them to back, take
that's
4 backs, this will help.
that's funny you mentioned that. I did see refillable and corrupting on there. I didn't see the regular health potion on there though. That's actually funny because over the last year I've been kind of running this lazy experiment where whether I'm playing ARAMs or Summoner's Rift, if I can start with a potion, I never start with it just to have a little bit more money saved up.
Yeah,
So good for
I actually
Krez.
I actually do the same thing. I often start with either 0 or 1 potions at the beginning of the game with a support item, or 0 with like a Doran's item, just to just try and get to that first item's breakpoint. Or even if I have to take a bad back, right, I can buy a ruby crystal and get back to lane. And you're risking that bad back, right? You're risking getting killed early, but if you don't, hey, 50 gold in your pocket. You know, you waste a few 100 gold on health potions. It's like wasting a kill.
All right, let's
So
move
yeah,
on
I
to
just did that.
these. Move on to these runes, of which some I don't really care too much about, and some I'm absolutely furious about.
Yeah, all right.
Uh, I'm pretty neutral on like biscuit delivery, bone plating, time warp tonic, and unflinching. But all the other ones I'm pretty damn upset about.
So which one are you the most upset about?
I'll be honest. I take conditioning almost every single game of League that I play. And this is the second time it's been nerfed now, so I'm pretty mad. I'm also really pissed about Guardian because I don't think it's impactful enough to warrant this cooldown nerf. And I also
Yeah,
take second wind to
more early
fuckload
on.
too, so that sucks.
I would kind of like if Guardian had a little bit of a lower cooldown at the high end than 40 seconds.
Yeah, I would be able to swallow this better if it was like 90 to 30 or 90 to 25.
90
Then
to 30 sounds good to me.
then I wouldn't feel the sting of betrayal.
Yeah, right?
Because I run this on Shen 2 when I'm doing my gay blow all the support stuff top.
Seems like all these changes are just tiny little shanks to your heart with your very very gimmicky Shen
That
builds.
seems to how it always is, man. Whatever I got in the lab at the moment, they stumble upon what I'm doing and they crack down on me.
Damn you, Riot Charizard and your
Mm,
spy bots.
exactly. They watch
Yeah,
me in the
damn you.
practice tool and they're like, "What the hell? He stumbled upon some new gay shit." Well, no, sir. Let's take that Gragas buff back that he needed. He waited 10 years to get and then took it
The thing
away.
I actually hate the most here is Time Warp Tonic. Like, this used to give you, I think, 5 or 6% bonus movement speed. They reduced it to 4. They're reducing it again to 2. You might as well just freaking get rid of it at this point. What is it giving you? 7 bonus movement speed?
I have
You know, for the
never
first second after you chug a potion?
I have never ever taken that before
I think
because
it's actually for the
I
whole time
always
after
I
you chug
always
a
thought it
potion.
was garbage.
There are a few champs I really like on. Soraka is actually a big one. It has helped me escape a lot of ganks just by restoring a little bit of health real quickly, especially if somebody's going to try to run me under turret or something.
Yeah, but if you're
Um,
taking inspiration on Soraka, then you're leaving behind some rune that's probably better on Soraka, like Revitalize or Ultimate Hunter or something, or Gathering Storm.
so,
All of
I
them
often
are
go
way better
Guardian.
than that.
I often go what is it called? The green tree as the
Res-
primary. What?
Resolve, yeah.
Resolve, yeah, as the primary, and then inspiration as the secondary.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because she's a champ that likes having the hourglass as well.
This inspiration is just so lackluster. I like escape velocity and the magical footwear, and that is it.
Approach velocity.
Yeah, approach velocity, whatever. Yeah, that thing's
Magical
good.
footwear is good. Yeah. The new glacial augment is not bad. And I personally think that perfect timing is also really good. Particularly if you have a champ that you want the boots on early on, so you can't get the magical footwear. I kind of like that as well. I kind of like inspiration as a secondary for a lot of champs, but often sorcery has something better for you. I'll give you that.
Yep.
Yeah, Scorch Change is worth noting just because this is the same kind of philosophy that it'll be easier to kind of poke someone out over time.
This
You
is
get 5
actually,
extra damage on Scorch.
strangely, this is probably actually the most important one of all of these changes because a ton of
Mhm.
people play around like early game gimmick cheese shit, and this is actually going to make a big deal, I think.
Yeah, 5 damage isn't huge, but for the amount of times you can proc it, it's not bad.
Yeah, its cooldown's pretty low.
Um, I still think Time Warp Tonic is a pretty big nerf here. And Second Wind, while the base heal is reduced to almost nothing, you still get 4% of your missing health. So that's not too bad.
Why did they even bother?
I don't know. I don't know.
Just
Summer
leave it
Spell, let's go over
alone.
those real quick.
What?
Unless there's another rune you wanted to talk about.
Uh, honestly, I could see them reverting this change to sudden impact. This is probably too good now.
Yeah, this is one of the first times in a long time they've increased lethality on something.
Yeah, that's too much for a rune. I don't think they'll keep that.
9 lethality.
My patch note Jedi senses say that lethality is going back down.
That's interesting. Yeah, they did increase your general armor and magic resistance a few patches ago. So the effect of that lethality is not quite as good as 9 lethality would have been before 1210. But I see what you're saying. You might be right on this. And yeah, that looks like a pretty good run now.
Yeah, I think it was always good.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the question
All
we've
right.
all been waiting for. Have you ever taken unflinching?
Have I ever taken on? Yes, I have.
Well, that's one
Take
more
that
than
in a
me.
bunch of times.
See, I'm one of
Actually,
those I'm one of
uh-huh.
those crazy people that's always playing for the late game, so I'll be running like overgrowth like or every game or something like that. I always play for like the late game. So I would never be caught dead with something like this.
Yeah, unflinching. I think I like on some champions that don't really need max health but still want that tree.
It was too good apparently. Somehow. This must
You
be
were
for
sleeping
like
on it this whole time, Chrissy.
you get this like on Singed or some shit and that's it. Or something.
All right, glad I could answer that very important question.
Alright, let's move on to all of these summoner spell changes.
All 2 of them.
Believe it or not, I actually think these are a pretty big deal. This almost pushes like this almost makes challenging smite like pointless now. If you're gonna completely cut in half like the dueling potential of this, which is the whole point of getting challenging smite over blasting smite or whatever the blue one was called, then
Freezing, or nobody ever uses it.
that's the one I like. I think slowing someone and stealing their movement speed is
Killing
better.
smite, killing smite.
Yeah. But don't like this. The whole point of this was for like the PvP junglers, you know.
Yeah. The fact that, and granted, it's just one source of damage that you're reducing the amount by 20%, but to knock that from 20 to 10 is pretty significant. I agree.
Yeah, and in an age where everyone and their grandma takes Ignite, Chris has been a true and tried exhaust boy his entire League of Legends career, so this also hurts me.
So the damage between the two smites is about break even though it comes out in different ways, right?
You can't put a price on damage reduction. That could block like 1,000 damage.
Sorry, I'm just talking about the damage that you deal with the smites. That's about break even between the two.
Oh no, I think the blue one does way more damage. I don't even think the red one does any damage. The blue one does like just
No,
like
the blue one, the red one applies a burn.
yeah, it applies a burn, I think, when you're fighting them. I don't think it applies it when you smite them.
Oh, right.
The blue one does like 50 do like 150
The
damage or
blue one deals
something.
3 damage, right? And then the red one, when you smite them and then you attack them, right? You get the burn.
Yeah.
Okay, so they are kind of like incomparable in that aspect. I was hoping to just compare the direct 20% movement speed and 20% slow versus 10% damage reduction.
You can't put a price on
Uh,
damage reduction. That's a very potent
right.
stat in League of Legends.
It is. But it's not like it's reducing all damage done to you by 10%. It's just all the damage from one champion.
Yeah, but you're infinitely more likely to use this in like a 1v1 situation.
That's fair, but you also see it used a lot in team fights. I don't know. I feel like this might change the calculus and make some champs or some players that were using the challenging smite start taking chilling. What do you think?
Seeing as how there's only two to choose from now that they got rid of the other two a long time ago, I really think that a healthy amount of people were always using both.
I don't see. I
I'm a
don't see
blue
chilling.
smite boy, but I think people use both.
You're a rare breed.
I just think
Are you still gonna? Yeah,
it's better for ganks. I mean, what more do you need to say? This isn't good for ganks.
it's not good for ganks, but it's definitely good for fighting.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yep. And a lot of champs already have kind of what they need for ganks in their kit. So if you're a
That's
jungler,
what makes the blue one even better. If you
that's fair.
if you have a strength, you should
That's fair.
capitalize on your strength. You know.
Oh, you and your Graves 90% lifesteal build.
Yeah.
All right, exhaust. Do you think that's a big one? 40% damage reduction has become 35%.
Well, like I said, you can't put a price on damage reduction
Do
because
you think this is big?
it's
Yeah.
I think it's a very big deal because damage reduction there's some champions that can do so much in so little a time that a 5%'s a lot.
Yeah, the amount of damage they'll do while exhausted is more than 5% more now. Because you're essentially looking at like how much more is 65 than 60, as a part of 60. So you're getting almost 10% extra damage off if you're exhausted than you would have last patch. And like you said, you can't put a price on damage reduction.
You really can't.
I'm sure some of these wikis do though.
Maybe there's
Some like
some thing where say
conversion
like
stat, right? Every percent
this
of damage reduction is worth 78.3 gold.
yeah, something like that. This stat's derived from Leviathan. Do you know what Leviathan is?
Oh man, that used to be an old item, but I forget what it did.
It used to be along with Sword of the Occult, the items that went with Soul Stealer. You would stack
Oh, okay, okay.
you would stack it up from killing people, and it gave more and more health. And when it was maxed out, it would give like 20% damage reduction.
Oh yeah, all those stacking items in those days gave some type of bonus at mech stacks. Yeah.
I don't know why they got rid of those two. They could have just made them better.
They would just win more items. It was, there was really no point in building them unless you just wanted to poop on the other team more, like when you were already pooping on them.
Yeah, but they used to give so many stats that they were like worth getting over a regular item. Soul Stealer like does not give enough AP for it to be worth being a real item anymore. It used to give a whopping 180 AP back then. Now it just gives like
That's crazy.
120 or something like that.
I mean, 120 is still pretty good for 1400 gold, right? You
It's
don't
good.
necessarily want
It's
to. You don't
good, but
necessarily. Mhm.
it's good, but it's not as good as an item that has some special effect that you're getting for a specific reason, like Void Staff. You know.
Right. Unless you have full stacks on it, I don't think you're keeping Mage Eyes into the late game. You're probably replacing it with real legendary items. But it can be really nice kind of in that mid game when every champ in the game has 150, 200 AP and you're sitting there with twice that.
All right, let's talk about all these dragon shenanigans.
This is my favorite part of the
Did
patch.
they just buff everything everywhere for everything?
So
Looks like it.
they specifically buffed the single dragon stacks on every dragon. As well as they changed the health and damage of the dragons. So I don't know if you
Okay.
want to go through kind of one by one or just kind of look at it all in a very large sense.
Well, we don't have to talk about the stat changes on monsters. I think we all get an idea of how strong the dragon is. So we don't really have to talk about that. When they start making changes to turrets and shit, we can talk about that.
Okay, so the kind of the gist of what they did on the Drake's stats is they have about 50 to 75% more health now. That is definitely worth keeping in mind. And they also do about 30-40% less damage to you. So they yeah, they take longer to take down, but they're less threatening. And in a minute I'll get to what that means. But you want to talk about the changes to the buffs at all?
I guess we could. I'm actually happy to see these buffs. I like these, the passive effect things. They're cool.
Yeah.
I like the ocean and the mountain.
Those are your favorite ones in general, or those are your favorite changes here?
Those are my favorite ones.
Yeah, those are my two favorites as well. Even though I think that just the Infernal and the Hex Tech are very much worth having. Personally, I don't think they're as fun as the Ocean and the Mountain. Anyhow, they gave some really nice buffs to some of these single stack drakes, with the intention being that they want to make the dragons worth fighting for and not conceding early on. So
These are some big
they
numbers with lots of
yeah, they
dragons.
doubled the effectiveness of every air drake you get. Cloud drake. Doubled it. It's worth twice as much as it used to be. The Cloud Dragon Soul is also worth a little bit more. 10% has become 15% passive movement speed.
Isn't this out of combat movement speed, though? Yeah, it is out of combat.
The
I
Cloud
always
Dragon
thought they
Soul,
would make it. I guess that'd be
no,
too
the
good.
Cloud. You're talking about the Cloud Dragon Soul or the individual stacks?
The stacks.
Yeah, the stacks are out of combat, and the Soul is when you use your ultimate. But 28%, out of combat for 4 stacks, that's pretty damn significant.
Yeah.
Good luck running away from that.
You're not.
Hex Tech, really nice ability haste buff.
That's way stronger than
More-
Ghost.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, if you're out of combat, that is stronger than Ghost.
Looks good.
Yeah. Oceanic Will. This looks like a pretty big buff. It looks like it's 50% better than it used to be. But just because of the way that works, that it's scaling on your missing health, like the first few seconds will be 50% better. Over time, it kind of becomes less than that. But still a nice buff there. Yeah, all of the dragons are much more worth fighting for now.
Cool.
There is one more thing I wanted to say about that in general, and then I'd like to hear what you think about the changes in general there.
I'm
But
listening.
okay, what this is going to do with the dragons, particularly the fact that they have a lot more health and deal less damage now, is that when you're fighting for the second, third dragon, let's say, and your team gets mostly wiped out. Let's say you lose 3 or 4 people. Maybe you have one person kind of running, trying to get away through your jungle, and the other team, maybe they've lost one person. They have one person who got low in the fight and has to back. They have one person who's chasing your survivor, and they have like 2 people, right, that are still going for the dragon. In the past, generally, 2 people, that was enough to take the dragon. Not even worth your team, unless it was the first fight and it was like 7-second respawn timers. It wasn't even worth attempting to get back to the Drake, because by the time you get there, they'll have already taken it. With these changes, even with a 10, 15, even 20-second respawn timer, you can get your team back to the dragon pit and essentially recontest that dragon, because it's going to take them a lot longer to take it now. If they can't stick 3 or 4 people on early dragon, you can get your team there and try to contest it. The only important thing is that you have a safe way in. Because if they know you're going to do that, they're just going to pick you off one by one as you filter in. But if you have a safe way in, you can actually get 3, 4 people back into that river before they take the dragon after a fight, and wipe them out, and take the dragon for yourself.
Don't make me look up those league patch notes.
So unless your team gets aced, it's definitely worth it now. And tell your team this, right? I'm sure they'll yell at you for telling them something smart. But unless your team gets entirely aced for the second, I'd say even the third dragon fight, try to get your team back there after respawns if the dragon wasn't like taken during the middle of the team fight. Contest it, and you can probably wipe the other team out while you're there. So it's a very different flow of play than it used to be in the last patch. This is definitely worth keeping in mind. What do you think, Chrissy?
The only thing I'm disappointed is that they didn't make the Elder Dragon even stronger than they did.
Yeah, you would have liked the attack damage to maybe go up instead of down.
I think they should also give it some kind of pissant ability like the Baron has too.
I agree with you completely.
I don't know why they gave it a damage nerf. It's basically as good
Well,
or even better than Baron is.
Yeah, the whole point of the Elder Dragon was always just to be like a meat wall that you have to spend a lot of time taking down to see if the other team can get there and contest it. I agree with you completely. Make it more threatening than the Baron, because its buff is better.
Yeah, it's pretty decisive.
Yeah, but 100 extra health per minute is going to mean it is probably harder to take, as long as the other team is willing to contest it. So that's good. Only other change they made was to the Rift Herald. Do you want to introduce that one?
You seem to got a pretty good grasp of these monsters. Looks like some bling. Looks like he's got some bling he's dishing out.
He's got like gold in his grills. You poke him in the eye and then you steal the gold off of his grills and you run away.
Is this good, like how much did it like give the one person killing it before? Wasn't much. Wasn't it only like 25 or something?
I think it was 25 gold, yeah. So now it's 200 local gold for everyone who shows up. And in addition, the second Summon Gerald does give you 75% more health than the first one. So that's kind of cool. If you're already winning the game and you take that guy, it can be a lot easier to kind of break that third tier turret if you get enough people there to protect them.
Not necessarily, because while that sounds really good, I'm pretty sure its charge ability just costs a flat amount of its max health.
Oh, if it's including the bonus health, not just the base health.
So it can really only ever charge like twice, basically, no matter how much health it has.
Right. It still does make it a lot easier to get to the turrets, so that's nice.
Yeah.
Sometimes that second Gerald, especially if you have to like put it down in a lane and walk away or something, because there's an objective up, he can be pretty easy for the other team to kill before he even gets one charge off. So that was a nice little buff that they gave him.
If they wanted to be really cool, they could have given the person who picks up the second buff like an additional aura buff for just them or something.
So something in addition to the empowered recall, you're saying give him like stats or bonus speed or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Empowered recall is pretty lame.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, right? Like, give somebody who picks up the second Gerald die, 5% bonus speed for as long as they're holding it. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
All
right. Now let's get down to these ultimate spellbook changes.
Your favorite mode.
I have been playing it a lot with my friends and my friends' girlfriend and my friend's girlfriend's brother and stuff.
I have literally never played this mode. I say bring back Invasion.
I actually thought it was pretty stupid, but turns out even something stupid playing with a friend is still pretty fun.
Certainly be fun, sure.
All right, that's it for now. I was just kidding. I ain't gonna talk about this goof shit.
You don't even want to say what your favorite new ult is?
I got to play a hilariously cheesy game with Tom Kench with Camille's ult. That was pretty funny. And then just a hopelessly gay game where I played against this top Lee Sin. This guy did not know what hit him. I got Mordekaiser with Lyssandra's ultimate. I mean, you just don't have a prayer, man. It's ridiculous. I stomped on his nuts so utterly, it was ridiculous.
R.I.P. to the Lee Sin top.
Yeah, you still pick lanes in that thing, even though sometimes a lot of people don't respect it. But I just go where my friends tell me to go, so...
Bring back Invasion.
All right, that's it for 12.14. You got anything to say?
Nothing else to say. Thanks for joining us today. And looking forward to the next patch where I think we're getting our Udio rework, right?
Is that? I hadn't heard that was the very next one, but I look forward to seeing that. I'm sure they can be pretty creative with a guy that just kind of auto attacks now. So,
I think it's sometime soon.
all right, well that's cool. We'll see you guys later.